Fire away.
Kevin, you talked about having a plan at quarterback with Jacoby and Deshaun, how you're going to split reps. Has that plan changed at all since Wednesday when you guys found out the NFL was going to appeal?
No, I think with our plan, Jake, we'll just kind of await clarity on the situation, but just continue to move ahead with what we're doing.
Do you have clarity, though, with the NFLPA not appealing? Do you have clarity that at least you know Deshaun will not be available for the first 6 weeks no matter what? Or are you still hopeful that he could be available week 1?
Yeah, I hope in the next few days that those type of questions gets answered.
It's possible this won't be resolved before you guys play Jacksonville next week. So is right now the plan for both guys to play?
We're talking through that, Jake. It's coming up here on Friday, so we're talking through some of those scenarios, but I haven't finalized those just yet.
Kevin, we know it's a fluid situation, but was there any letdown that you were maybe excited that there was an end and now it's extended back out?
No, I like I've said to you guys from the beginning, we're just controlling what we can control, understand that this is a process, and I'll continue to make decisions with the information that I have.
Kind of following up on Jake's first question, it feels like the suspension is going to get longer because of the appeal. So your decision to get Jacoby more first-team reps has not gone into effect yet? Like you're not bumping that, bumping the plan up, I guess?
Yeah, I would say I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to wait till I have some concrete information.
Has any of this been a surprise to the organization, or did you guys play the scenario out where the NFL could appeal and it could be longer than 6 games?
Yeah, I think all of these scenarios you have to be ready for, Nate. And again, it's like we've talked about all along. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the various scenarios, kind of just deal with what's in front of me.
Kevin, given the strength of your defense, your running game, all the other areas of the team, how confident are you that you guys can accomplish all the goals that you have this season, regardless of whatever news that you get from the NFL?
Yeah, Mary Kay, I'm not going to go too far into the future and what's coming. I think I've tried, and I've asked the players to do this, so I'm going to do the same. I've tried to take a one day at a time approach and focus on the day and focus what we have in front of us, which is practice. But all those type of conversations are probably for another time.
Do you have anything that you can say to all the fans that can come out here and are so excited about this football team this season, reasons why they should be excited regardless of what happens?
Yeah, I think, like we've mentioned, we're excited about this season as a team. The guys are very excited about 2022, and you mentioned the fans. I've definitely felt the energy from these fans. So, but in terms of specifics past that, I don't know that it's that time yet. But yeah, I think the guys are excited about the work that they've put in so far, and they're certainly looking forward to competing come September.
Kevin, I'm not sure Bill Callahan was the first coach you contacted, but I think he was the first coach you announced on getting your job here.
Okay.
So my question is, why was he the number one target at offensive line? If he was, then just go on from there.
Yeah. Well, Coach O'Shea was the first hire. But Coach Callahan was somebody that I did not know personally. Really, the connection there was through Brad Childress, and Coach Childress and Coach Callahan worked together way back when. I believe maybe they started it was at Illinois when they first started together. So Coach Callahan, obviously I knew from afar, knew all about him, respected his work. And then as you get to the business of putting staff together, that's a complicated puzzle. And that offensive line piece is a very, very large piece of that puzzle. So when Coach Callahan happened to be available at that time, and with my connection to Coach Childress, Coach McVay I spoke to about Coach Callahan early on in that process, and it was very clear that he was somebody that I felt like I needed to have on this staff. Just number one, he's a good offensive line coach, but number two, being a former head coach was something that was important to me as well.
Were you given the advice, get your offensive line coach as quickly as you can?
Yeah, that's definitely something that is talked about in this business. It's a big hire, and it's as you guys know, Coach Callahan means a lot to our success, means a lot to me on a personal and professional level. So it was a big deal when we were able to get him, because there's certain years that Bill Callahan's not available based on, he's got a job. In that case, I was fortunate that he was looking for one.
Speaking of the line, what kind of resources Joe Thomas been for your guys in this camp, spending time with the O-line?
Yeah, I think it's been great. Joe is always welcome here. I've told him that. He can come every day if he wants. we'll set up a locker for him. But he's somebody that's done it at such a high level for such a long time. Been through the ups and downs of an NFL season, so I just think he has a lot to offer our guys. So as much as Joe is willing, we're always willing to take him here at Berea.
I know he's talked to some of your guys, some of the younger guys especially, but is it accurate that this is really the first time he's been able to be hands-on because of protocol?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if you think back, at least for May 2020, nobody was here. 21 was all the tiers, and there was a limited number of people you could bring in. So definitely this is the first time that it feels normal that you can have, a resource like Joe Thomas available to your players.
Kevin, a week before your first game, are you where you wanted to be in this camp, or?
I think hard to say. I think we're where we are, knowing we have a long, long way to go. I think the guys are working very hard. I think we're where we want to be from an installation schedule, but we have work to do, and fortunately here we'll get some more hot weather to do it in, and we'll be in pads the next couple of days, so starting to integrate that contact period and those type of things. So we're on track, but recognizing we got a long way to go.
Kevin, we talked to Martin today, and I know we've seen his length. I think that's the first thing that stands out about him. What else have you gotten to learn about him since you drafted him and you've had him these last few months?
Yeah, Ashley, I think he's really competitive, so he does a nice job out at practice and competing for the ball. He's very intelligent. We knew that going into that process of the draft, so that has shown up. He does what he's supposed to do when he's supposed to do it, so he's been very accountable in that way. But he's been as advertised, and why we're excited to get him. He's shown those things to us.
Every day you're allowed 3 padded days in a row, right? Based on some other things. Do you have that on your schedule for 3 in a row anytime?
Not this week, but potentially moving forward.
Can you talk about ironing, sharpening iron all the time, but specifically with the wide receivers, having that versatility of body size and skill set, how are you seeing that shape your defense? How important is that for you to see those guys out there running?
Yeah, it's a good question, Cam, because we do try to do things ones versus ones oftentimes, and you want, quote unquote good versus good, and I think for our players to get really good competitive work against each other, I think there's a way to do that, and certainly when you're talking about the offensive players going against some talented defensive players, you have Amari Cooper, who's a bigger body, different skill set than, say, a Demetric Felton, for instance. So I think it's really good that those guys get to work against different people throughout this camp.
Will you have anybody back in practice today that has been injured, such as Anthony Schwartz or anybody like that?
Those guys are really close. I think in the next few days we'll get some of those guys back, but not today.
AJ Green's a guy that just every day seems to come out here and make plays. And obviously those are the easy to see when he's getting those PBUs and the 11 on 11s. But just from a consistency standpoint, from your perspective, and maybe even Joe and what you've talked about, just how consistent has he been, and are we making more of what we're seeing or not enough of what we're seeing out of him?
I don't know what you're making of it, Daryl.
He's having a very good camp.
He's having a good camp. He's a good football player, and I think he showed that when he got opportunities last season in games. He's shown up on special teams throughout his career. So I think he's another guy. He's in the natural progression of being a third-year player and seeing if he can take that next step.
Kevin, you're talking about getting work in, going back to Wednesday. You pulled the team all together kind of earlier in practice. Was that about your maybe seeing the work you wanted to?
No. That was just sometimes I'll pull them together to explain the next drill we're doing.
Could your corners get a better teacher than Cooper?
Yeah, that's a good point, Marla. He's a challenge for corners, and I just think about when I was evaluating him this season when he maybe was going to be available. The corners in this league really feel Amari coming off the ball, and it's again that we've talked about it, that combination of size and speed and savviness and lean and all those type of things. So those corners talk to Amari a lot after a play and ask about certain things he's seeing. So he's definitely able to show them physically, and then he's the professional that loves to talk ball afterwards.
You guys were complimentary of Greg Newsome throughout his rookie year. How do you think he can get better in year 2? Maybe areas you've already seen and make strides?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of room for growth with Greg. Again, second-year player, played inside and out for us last season, was competitive when the ball was in the air. So I think there's a ton of technical things that he can work on, and he's working on those things with Coach Howard and Coach Lynch, and then just a general understanding. So much of that becomes schematic understanding and pattern recognition, the things that allow you to just react and not think. And you see some young players oftentimes are playing slow because they're thinking, and we really want them to react as opposed to think.
He's talked about how his mom and his sister have been kind of critical of him, like when he makes a mistake, they'll first to point it out. Did you have that when you were playing growing up? I mean,
oh yeah. I know what that feels like. That continues to today.
Huh?
That continues to today.
Mostly from dad, or?
Yeah, dad and brothers. Yeah.
Under the category of he will turn over any stone to find talent, would Colin Kaepernick be on the Browns' ready list at any point?
Yeah, I'm not going to have those type of discussions, Tony, on who we've looked at and haven't, but I'll kind of leave that internal.
How's James Hudson?
James doing a good job. He's continuing to come along. He played a lot last season, maybe more than we thought he would, because we had that rash of injuries early. So he got thrown in there, had some good moments, and then I think this offseason has been really, really key for him, getting his body where it needs to be, getting his understanding of the position where it needs to be, because he was a defensive player. He was a late transition to offensive tackle. So he's a guy that I believe is making strides, and I'd go back to Coach Peters and Coach Callahan and Coach DeCoster. The work that they're doing with him, I think, is showing dividends.
You've told us a bunch of times, like, it's hard in the spring to answer O-line, D-line questions. You got some padded practices. What's your progress report on Winfrey now? Is he showing up to you at all? I think to your point, now is when you start to answer that. I still think it's a little early, just when they've only been on for a couple times. So, but there's a skill set there, obviously, that we're excited about. You see him in drills. He comes off the ball. There's an explosive ability. He needs a ton of technical work, like a lot of these young guys do. He just needs reps after reps after reps. So luckily we have the time to do that for him right now. But I'd say it's a little early to make a more of a claim than that.
Haven't you been in a situation in your career where you had to plug in Case Keenum in Minnesota and play him for most of the season? It obviously had a nice result for you guys. Do you see, some similarities, and do you feel, super confident that Jacoby can kind of carry this team if it turns out that he has to do that for 10, 12 games of the season?
Yeah, I think I definitely use my experiences in the past to help inform me now, and that was also a unique situation. So I definitely lean on some of those experiences. I had other experiences. Think about when Favre came in to the Vikings late in the process. Sam Bradford got to the Vikings late trade after Teddy's unfortunate injury. So I think a lot of your coaches here that have spent a lot of time in this league have seen a bunch of different things when it comes to guys becoming available and then getting them ready to play, and having an off season to get a guy ready to play. So I think we're going to use all those experiences that we have. But when it comes to the quarterback position, the approach we're taking right now is we've got to get everybody ready to play. And that's the beauty of training camp, when you can have a bunch of reps and get Deshaun his reps, get Jacoby, get Josh Rosen, get Josh Dobbs his reps. And I think that's kind of where we are now.
And has there been a little bit of a method to your madness with giving Deshaun
I hope so.
many reps? Because, you don't even know at this point if he will be available to play in some of those early games that you didn't think he would be able to because of conjunctions and whatnot.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll let that play out, Mary Kay, but we got to get Deshaun ready to play. He hasn't played football in a year. We got to get Jacoby ready to play. He's potentially going to be playing early for us and starting, and we're going to be counting on him. Same thing for Dobbs and Rosen. Those guys have to be ready to play. So I just look at it as we're going to use every opportunity we have out here, individual drill, post-practice, during practice. We got to get all these guys ready to play.
Kevin, obviously,
Last
it's
one
not
here.
games yet, but do you see that any of that rustiness on Deshaun that you mentioned that he hasn't played since the end of 2020?
No, I wouldn't say I see rustiness, Jeff. I think, these preseason games will be an opportunity to play when it's game setting and the defense can come after you and you're truly in a game. I think that'll really be more when you get closer to game reps than, say, a practice.